All right, let's dive into a really fascinating comparison from the philosopher Rudolf Steiner. He looked at Buddhism and Christianity and saw something more than just different religions. He saw two, well, completely opposite ways of understanding who we are, what our purpose is, and even what time itself is all about.
So let's get the biggest critique of Steiner's work out of the way, right up front. A lot of people accused him of just, taking Eastern ideas like reincarnation and repackaging them for a Western audience. But Steiner's whole point was that his critics were totally missing the bigger picture. To frame this whole thing, Steiner used a pretty sharp analogy from the Orientalist Max Mueller. Mueller had this idea that authentic Buddhism is kind of like a pig's natural grunt. It's the real deal, But he saw a lot of modern spiritual movements as just a person imitating that grunt. It's a bit harsh for sure, but it perfectly sets the stage for this whole debate. Steiner's argument was that his goal was never to just copy or reproduce Buddhism. I mean, think about it. A modern geometry teacher isn't trying to reproduce Euclid, right? He just wanted to get to the core spirit of each worldview, to show how fundamentally different they really are.
And this brings us right to the first major difference. And it all starts with a simple question. What exactly is a person? To dig into this, Steiner points us to a classic Buddhist parable that you might have heard before.
So, in this ancient text called The Questions of King Milinda, the sage Nagasena asks the king a really simple question. How did you get here? Did you walk, or did you take a chariot? The king, of course, says he came in a chariot. And this is where it gets interesting. Nagasena just starts taking the chariot apart, piece by piece, verbally. He asks the king, okay, is the axle the chariot? No. Are the wheels a chariot? No. What about the seat? And every single time, the answer is no. And here's the profound takeaway. Chariot is just a word, a label we put on a temporary pile of parts. And the parable says the same goes for the human self. From this point of view, your I is also just a name for a collection of thoughts, feelings, and body parts, with no permanent single soul holding it all together. And this is where Steiner draws that crucial contrast. He says, in the Christian view, the self isn't the chariot, it's the driver. It's that invisible, unifying thing that gives all the parts their purpose. I mean, a hand is only a hand because it's part of a person, right? The parts are basically meaningless without the enduring ego that's guiding the whole thing.
So, if you have such a different way of defining what a self is, it makes sense that your ultimate goal in life would also be totally different. What's the point of it all in each of these worldviews?
Okay, the story of the Buddha. It starts in a palace, completely shielded from any pain or sorrow. But when he finally goes out into the world, he sees old age, sickness, and death for the very first time. And that realization leads him to his core conclusion. Existence itself is suffering, and the whole quest is to find a way out. The Buddha figured out that the root cause of all this suffering is what he called the thirst for existence. That deep, powerful urge that keeps pulling us back into a physical life over and over again. So logically, the ultimate goal is to extinguish that desire, to break the cycle of reincarnation and just be released from this world of pain.
And that's exactly why Steiner defines Buddhism as a religion of redemption, or maybe a better word is release. The entire point is freedom from the cycle of earthly life. Now, the Christian goal, at least in Steiner's view, points in the complete opposite direction. It's not about escaping life at all, it's about embracing it. The idea here is that the fruits of your experiences in one life aren't thrown away. No, they're carried forward to be perfected and built upon over time. And this, I think, just brilliantly illustrates why Steiner calls Christianity a religion of rebirth or resurrection. It means nothing is wasted. Every single experience becomes a building block for your soul, meant to be reawakened and lifted up into a higher, more spiritual form across many lifetimes.
So these completely different goals are really rooted in how each tradition sees the physical world itself. Is the world the problem, or is it our relationship with the world that's the problem?
Just think back to the Buddha's big aha moment. He sees a corpse, and for him, that's the ultimate proof that physical existence is painful and fleeting. His conclusion, the world itself is the source of suffering, and the only salvation is to turn away from it. Now compare that to the central image of Christianity. You have a corpse on a cross, but it symbolizes the exact opposite of futility. It's presented as this promise of eternal life, a sign that death isn't the end, but has been conquered and transformed into a new beginning.
This reveals a really subtle but incredibly profound difference. In the Buddhist view, the outer world itself is Maya, or illusion. But in Steiner's take on Christianity, the world is totally real. The illusion comes from how we see it. So the goal isn't to escape the world, but to regain our spirit eyes so we can finally see it for what it truly is.
All of these differences in how we see the self, the world, our ultimate goal, they all build up to one final critical distinction: their view of time itself.
And this right here is the key takeaway. Steiner says Buddhism has a non-historical outlook. The cycle of suffering just repeats, and the relationship between a person and the world is pretty much the same in every single life. Christianity, on the other hand, is fundamentally historical. It sees each life as a step in an evolution, a developmental journey where the soul learns and grows and changes over time.
So here it is, all laid out. You have one path that sees a temporary self living in an illusory world, trying to get released from a repeating cycle. And then you have another path that sees an enduring self in a real world, trying to resurrect its experiences as part of a progressive, forward-moving evolution. So from this historical point of view, earthly life is totally transformed. It stops being a prison sentence of suffering that you're desperate to escape. Instead, it becomes a workshop, a place where the soul, through all these repeated experiences, actually forges and perfects an eternal spiritual self.
Steiner wraps it all up with this incredibly powerful line from Goethe, which he felt captured the core Christian impulse perfectly. It's this deep belief that what we do here isn't pointless, that it's woven into the fabric of eternity. And it leaves us with a pretty big final thought, doesn't it? Is life a prison to escape, or is it a workshop for forging something that lasts forever?